Okay, meeting of the August 30th Rules Committee will come to order. Mr. Snell, would you do the blessing, sir?
Rise, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for the rain you have provided. Lord, help us as we go through the meeting today. Be with all the visitors, be with all the people presented today. And thank you very much, Lord. Amen.
Shelley Cole.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
David Walkenstick.
Here.
Bill Anglin. Jack Baker. Joe Bird. Julia Coates. Here. Jody Fishinghop. Here. Meredith Fraley. Janelle Fulbright. Here. Don Garvin. Frankie Hargis. China Corey Gordon. Present. Lee Keener. Dick Lay.
Here.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
David Thornton. David Watkins. Karen Powell. Ani. We do have one.
Entertain a motion to approve the July 26 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Garvin. Do we have a second?
Sorry.
Second by Councilor Curtis Snell. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Move now to reports. Mr. Buell?
Mr. Chair, could I go ahead
Yes,
and
Councilor.
have consideration of amending the agenda?
Certainly.
We have several items that are in front of you for possible placement on the agenda. And I would just like to do all this in one motion if possible. There is a resolution to confirm the nomination of Farrell Prater as a member of the Cherokee Nation Registration Committee. There is an act relating to the creation and regulation of armed security within the Cherokee Nation. There is a resolution confirming the nomination of Betty Barker as a member of the Cherokee Nation Registration Committee. There is There is an act to provide for additional oversight of Cherokee Nation businesses by the Cherokee Nation Tribal Council and declaring an emergency. There was one more that I believe I didn't get with my packet.
There is an act to the Registered Security Officer Act.
I've got that one.
And what Linda O'Leary is a registrar.
Linda O'Leary is a member of the registration committee. That was the fifth one.
And Madam Speaker, just to kind of keep us on the same topic, I'd suggest
Put them all together.
The three, in terms of the order, the three relating to the registration committee.
Let's put those first.
Okay.
Let's see, the one about the marshal next, then we've got a fifth one here.
And then we've got the council
And
appointments.
add them to the end of the agenda.
These will be new business items. 7 will be Ms. Prater. 8 will be Ms. Barker. 9 will be Ms. O'Leary. 10 will be the Registered Security Officer Act. And 11 will be Councilor Thornton's Council Oversight of C&B Act. Is that accurate?
And one additional thing, I would ask that we go ahead, because we have a number of guests, that unless someone has a particular question of the reports, that we dispense with them and go with the written reports today.
Okay, so to the extent that they've submitted written reports, we'll dispense with those reports. Is that your part of the motion?
Unless someone has particular questions of a particular area.
Very good. Why don't we take the, I'll just make that ruling as the chair, but in terms of amending the agenda, let's take your motion out. If you have a motion, do you have a second? Second by Councilor Garvin to amend the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman, I have my hand raised for questions.
Yes, Councilor.
Thank you. Is there some reason on the registrar nominations that it has to move forward today? Are we short on the registrar committee? Have people resigned?
I don't believe we have anybody on the committee. It's a
Thought-
committee of 3, and I believe. And I think they're trying to reactivate the committee.
Yeah, if I could, it's my understanding from talking to Shelley that the terms run concurrent with the principal chief, so there is no membership on that committee at this time.
Okay, and just for clarification of the record, it is Prater, not Prather.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And did the motion did include that if we have questions that we can ask of the reports?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Could we get a designation if we might have questions of what reports, and then we could let those folks go back to work if you didn't have a question of their area?
Let's get the agenda amended. We're about to move to a vote. Any further questions on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of amending the agenda say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Oh, very good. Okay, so with respect to reports, we'll dispense with the reading of the reports, but if councilors have questions, I guess identify those now. Councilor Keener.
Well, with some of the, thank you, Mr. Chair, with some of the acts and before us, we may have questions of the, like one example, the tax commission.
I agree, and I would ask Ms. Webster, her representative, to stick around for the duration, or at least through the tax-related items.
Yes. I don't know of any others that may come up, but it's possible to call them back if they do read.
It is possible, but it would save some time with the heavy agenda to dispense with the reading at least. But you're right, Councilor. If we have other issues down the agenda that touch on their areas, we do need to have them read.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I know that's true of the marshal. We have legislation. Attorney General is always nice to have around. So let's proceed to questions rather than reports. Anyone have a question for the marshal on his report? Very good. You want to have a question of the representative of the Attorney General on the Attorney General's report? And who is representing the Attorney General today? Is that Mr. Morton? Anybody have any questions of Mr. Morton? Councilor Campbell.
Good afternoon.
I was right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Morton, have we proceeded any further on water mitigation or planning, and have we hired any outside attorneys for that?
I don't know, but I'll find out.
Would you
Yes.
respond to the council in writing via email? Just send it to all or send it to Gail for distribution? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Councilor Keener?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess is this the appropriate time to give us an update on the UKV case?
A petition was filed in the Northern District yesterday, and a copy was presented. Did you get your copy?
Yes.
Okay, we sent those over this morning. If it pleases this body, take a look at it, review it. I think it's 37 pages long and may have 9 to 10 causes of action. And have someone back next month, or if you want to schedule a meeting before that time, we can discuss that in early September.
We don't have any court dates as of yet, right? Or is there?
This would be no court dates right now.
Right. And then on the Friedman case, is October 5th the first date for that?
On the Friedman case, the DC case,
Yes.
It's set for oral arguments in October. And in the Northern District case, motions to dismiss are pending, and I believe the response on those, they file a response September 28th, and I think our response is also in October.
For District Court 5. Northern District, I'm
Yes.
sorry, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes.
I would also like to say, Mr. Keener, that the election commission filed their own separate, Mr. Jenkins, they filed their own separate action because the election commission was a party in that particular current action, and so the election commission filed a separate.
Thank you, Diane. Councilor Campbell, did you have your hand up?
I'm fine. I'll raise it in a different manner. Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions for Mr. Morton? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess that embraced codification too. No one had any questions on codification. You did have a question on codification.
Are we still on the same timeline for codification?
Yes, that's my understanding. Since the last report, we did have a meeting with the Supreme Court to talk about items that they would like to see in the codification process as well.
And I'm trying to recall off memory, and I don't. That was approved in the budget process to pay for all of it on the last budget round. We don't anticipate another budget needed for codification, correct? She presented, the AG's office had presented a bid from Westlaw, I believe.
It's my understanding that's the amount, but I will check with that
Okay.
because I was not here for that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, sir. All right. The Election Commission. Councilor Kanawat, you have a question for Mr. Horton on the Election Commission report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Horton. Nice to see you. I just wanted to know that do anticipate a lawsuit concerning the redistricting and apportionment constitutionality to be filed next week, probably, is what we're hoping. Because we have volunteer lawyers since we have no budget, so kind of those piece together stuff. But I didn't want you not to have a heads up that I assume you anticipated it, but
You figured it.
okay. And we're trying to be timely because we know elections upon us, but.
The only thing I want you to know is this, we gotta have everything ready and set, And if this thing drags on and drags on and drags on, I don't know how we're gonna have an election. So,
Constitution is the Constitution. It's one of those funny things about government. So, yeah.
we talked about it, and all the commissioners, and we said it's inevitable. We knew it was inevitable when it first come up, but we've got all of our precincts lined out, and the one that we've got already.
Under the 5 districts,
Yes.
is that what you're saying?
No, in the new 15 districts, we've got our precincts all figured out. And we hadn't picked out exactly where we're going to have our precinct, where we're going to have our polling, but we've got all that fixed out. So, Marty, you want to say anything on that? Or?
No, sir, thank you.
But, well, that's about all I can tell you. I mean, there's no use going on and out with everything done right now. When it comes up to lawsuit, then it goes back to 5 districts or whatever, Everything we've done is in vain.
Have you guys, I apologize, I don't recall from your report, but have you selected your vendor yet? Because I understand Osage Nation had a lot of problems with True Ballot.
We haven't picked our vendor yet because we have only got a response from one, and there's 2 more out there that's supposed to send us bids.
And who have you gotten bid from?
Hart.
What is it?
Hart.
H-A-R-T?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Horton.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Y'all have a printout in your book. Has anybody got any other questions that you want to ask?
Any further questions for Mr. Horton, the Election Commission? All right. Mr. Horton, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Webster of the Tax Commission. Does anyone have any questions for the Tax Commission? Okay. Very good. Does anyone? Yes. Councilor Snell, you have a question? Certainly. Councilor Snell has a question. Ms. Webster. She just escaped. Councilor Snell had a question for you, Ms. Webster.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Sharon, on this act we got about the tax exempt for the veterans, have you got that figured out?
Okay, if you pass it the way I see it's written right now, okay, there's going to have to be some decisions made by the commission. We have a meeting on the 12th. One is, what are we going to use for documentation, which we talked about last month, which to me, you would almost have to have those veterans, we get their driver's license and their DD-214s, whatever we need, and we issue them some type of a card for the casinos. And what you guys need to realize is this doesn't just affect our casinos. This is anything that we issue a retail license to. So if our smoke shops, which have retail license sales, and they decide to sell groceries or whatever else, they're going to have the ability to accept this card also and track it or whatever we decide that is. Because it doesn't just affect, the way it's written, it doesn't just affect the casinos, it affects any retailer that has a license through Cherokee Nation. So it's going to take some time. It can be done, but it is going to take a little bit of time.
You will be around when we get
Yes.
to that legislation.
Yes, I will. I plan on staying.
Thanks, Sharon.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Hanby on her self-governance report?
I do have an update that I think the council might need to be aware of in regards to
I'll take your word for it.
Delaware.
Okay, go ahead.
This is something that came up during negotiations. We received a letter dated July 23rd from the BIA in regards to a solicitor's opinion that's been issued regarding us transferring funds through our compact to the Delaware tribe, and that the solicitor's opinion is that that is inconsistent with the self-governance law, and what we agreed to during negotiations last week, a couple of weeks ago, was that we would continue with the current agreement as is. That would allow both legislative bodies, both administrations with the Delaware and the Cherokee Nation to come to resolution in how to deal with this issue. I've been working with Susan Work from the AG's office on that particular issue, as well as we did have some funding that was coming through to the Delaware that could be in jeopardy. We worked an amendment to the existing MOA to allow them to receive a 638 contract so that they wouldn't lose those funds. I spoke with Curtis Duniga just earlier today, and they have signed off on that, and we're working that so that they don't lose their funding. Also, with our current compact funding agreement, it expires at the end of 2013. So we negotiated with the agency. It's in the surveying process right now, but we're trying to negotiate with them that we would put off any changes to our agreement until the end of that FY13. So I just wanted to be sure that the council was aware of that.
Thank you, Vic. Mr. Conway, you had a question for?
Yes, thank you. Now, is that base MOA between us and the Delaware Nation just on all services? And
Yes.
You said there was an amendment, but I don't recall an amendment coming back to council. Maybe I didn't understand there was an amendment to the MOA at the time, because I thought we had to approve that.
There has been, this is actually the second amendment to that agreement. Neither of those amendments have gone through the council. There was an opinion that if it's changes to the services, the AG's office may want to chime in that. But it's my understanding that that was not necessary for an amendment to the actual program funding.
Okay, because it didn't change the mechanism, right, how we funded it or
Right.
received funding
And that's why we also negotiated with the BIA that we would need time in order for both legislative bodies to approve any amendments that the administrations come to. And keep in mind that the Delaware's federal recognition is tied to this MOA. So we didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize that in any way, and it would also give both parties time to come to agreement.
I don't have, so two things. One, could we get, when an amendment is made, we should still be notified and in a timely manner. And if there's an AG's opinion on it, I'd like to see a copy of it, because we can admit a lot of stuff, but I don't recall ever seeing that, whether that was AG Hammonds or AG Hembry, and a timeline when those different amendments were done and what they were, even if it's just the program services on the other end and the deliveries then. But in reading the Delaware News, it appears that there's negotiations going on for something bigger between their administration and Chief Baker's office that I don't know that anyone, I don't know if anybody on this body is aware of it, but it was announced in their news and spoke about in 2 different places, at least during one edition of the Delaware News. And it was kind of shocking. I had a copy out and had it highlighted to bring, and somehow I got out the door without it. If there's negotiations going on that's going to require a major change to the MOA, I think this body needs to be aware of it sooner rather than later. And you may not be aware of it, I don't know, but what's being announced on the Delaware side seems to be significant. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Frey?
You know what the status is of the potential court lawsuit on IHS and BIA refusal to let us see the contractor's force cost data?
Yes, we joined the several members of the coalition with Boyd Miller's firm. We are moving forward with that lawsuit. And here again, anytime that we go into litigation of any kind, I can give my opinion, but that needs to come from the AG's office, and we did get approval from the AG's office to move forward with that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions for Ms. Hennedy? Counselor Lane?
I wonder if Mason can either confirm or not any negotiations that's going on with the Delaware tribe about their MOA or anything else that's pressing at this time from the Attorney General's office.
And so we have not had any actual formal negotiations as yet.
I don't have anything in addition to add as far as any negotiations with the Delaware tribe.
Thank you.
Ms. Hennedy, maybe next month in your report you could touch on if there are negotiations, so we'll know. All right. Gaming Commission, Mr. Hummingbird? You have a question? Councilor Byrd has a question.
Yes, sir.
Brief summary of internet gaming.
Okay.
That's why I said brief.
Senate Committee on Indian Affairs has offered up what we call TOGA, the Tribal Online Gaming Act. It is being floated out there for comment amongst tribes at this point. We're reviewing that act. There are a number of provisions in there that present challenges for any tribe, us included. But the act itself is an opening for tribes to take advantage of internet gaming should they choose to do so. It is establishing a regulatory framework under the Department of Commerce and has a lot of the elements of Indian Gaming Regulatory Act reflected in it as far as licensing and approval of games, etc. So in those cases, it's not nothing new to us, but the challenges that we're having are more in terms of being able to look at entry into market and how to educate a new federal agency in the ways of gaming. That is being some of the more prevalent challenges. So internet gaming is going to be out there. Senators Kyle and Reed are actively working on a bill to propose out there, and this bill may be something that they incorporate into it, or at least take some provisions out of it to incorporate into their bill. The rumor around town, I guess, is that they're going to try to get something passed this year, by the end of this calendar year. So if they do, then it's something for us to keep an eye on. Right now, there's been rumor of a draft circulating out there, but it's not been distributed to the public.
We would not want the Department of Commerce overseeing.
It would not be my first choice, no. NIGC already has a regulatory framework in place. They understand tribes, they understand Indian gaming. I think they would probably be best suited to really implement any legislative act, any congressional act, quicker than most other agencies. Since they have that history already there and that structure in place, they would make the most sense. But Commerce seems to be the prevailing agency that's being viewed for any internet gaming bill.
Jamie, is this just a ploy for the state to try to garner more revenue from the tribes?
It really depends on how the bill is situated. A lot of, pretty much everything hinges on the language that's in there. That's why it's really good for tribes to keep a close eye and ear on these deals, because the devil is in the details, as they say. And as you look at it, it really defines what authority states would have over tribes in terms of regulation, in terms of any, I don't want to use the word taxation, but any revenue share or anything like that. So it's really going to depend on what legislation gets enacted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jamie.
Councilor, do we have any idea what the Oklahoma delegation said or thinks about this legislation?
Honestly, I don't know. I have not talked to anybody on the Oklahoma side to know if there's any support or interest or any opposition to a federal bill, or if they're even looking at anything on the state. So I really couldn't comment.
Very good, thank you. Any further questions for Councilor Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So has National Indian Gaming Commission, IGC, have they done a study on how it's going to impact our industry in general?
No. When asked point blank from Senators Franken and Chairman Akaka, the NIGC was evasive in their answers. I don't think that they are really putting a lot of energy into it. I can't say that they're turning a blind eye to it, but they are more focused on, I'll say, implementing the provisions of whatever act they are given. So right now they have not voiced an opinion one way or another, whether it's to support or oppose, and neither have they ventured any information as to what impact it would have on tribal gaming.
Congratulations on your national award, and happy birthday to you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
She beat me to the congratulations on the International Gaming Regulators.
The International Masters of Gaming Law.
Yeah. You were chosen as Regulator of the Year.
Yes.
Look at how that happened.
I thought they had me mistaken with somebody else. They said they got the right guy.
Hey, that's great. Congratulations. That's all I have.
Any further congratulations for coming in?
I've just asked for a copy of this recording to be sent to the commission and the chief, so my evaluation reflects that. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Justice, is anyone here to report on Registrar Citizenship Data Update? Does anyone have any questions in that regard? All right, very good. Next item of business is old business. Councilor Fishing Hawk, one of the sponsors of the tax exemption legislation, would you take that?
Yeah. I move for approval for discussion.
Okay, we have a second. We have a second by Councilor Lay. Okay, moving to discussion.
Sharon?
Yeah, Ms. Weston, could you come up? I'm sure we'll have questions for you. Councilor Fishhow, is this unchanged from last time?
That's what I'm trying to present it over.
It's the same. Well, it appears to be the same one. Ms. Barker Harold, do you have questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, there was a discussion last time about the content of food. The veterans, Councilor Fraley had suggested to include reservists and National Guard, and not just limited to Oklahoma National Guard, because we do have probably members from other states that serve in other state National Guards. I was checking a while ago about that particular provision, and there was a discussion in a couple of councilors. A gentleman was in there and said that if you're just because you're a member of the National Guard or the reserves, that doesn't make you a veteran, that you have to serve in conflict to be able to be a veteran. And that may be something that we need to change, or that may already be the policy for the other disabled veterans that you already have. Is that something, Sharon?
The policy that we currently have for the 100% disabled veterans, That mirrors the states, exactly. It's whatever the requirements are on the state. And my understanding is that they do have to have been in a, they had to go to war. They had to have been overseas or somewhere. It couldn't just be, yeah.
I didn't know if we had to clarify that, or if that's just something in your policy.
No, that is not. That's something that would have to be clarified as to what they wanted to require.
Okay.
In this,
act.
yes.
So that may be something we need to make sure about. I may need to get with Sharon on that exact language.
Councilor Cowan, I had you next, and then Madam Speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know who needs to answer this, but it would seem like this definition then is not consistent with this other definitions that would be used for cards that would easily identify a veteran, or with even maybe past definitions of veterans we use for card tags and those kind of things. So I don't want to put something out. I mean, I absolutely support this and think we should be doing this, but we don't need to put something out and then create confusion and have people, both for the staff and the veterans. So I don't know how to remedy it. I don't know if anybody has any recommendations, but there is that that we need to address. And then I was hoping we would have a financial impact statement. That was what we asked for last time too.
And I have.
And I'm done.
I'm sorry.
If we get that.
Madam Speaker, did you have a?
I believe we need some definitions, so I'm going to ask to table it for a month so that we can get the definitions in there. So that I believe I'm just like Councilor Watts. I want to pass it, but we want to have those definitions in there so there's no question when we get it out to the vendors. So I would make a motion to table.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. It is tabled, but Ms. Webster, if you want to give us a party.
Well, as far as the financial impact, that is going to be very hard to determine, since that I right now do not have a feel for how many veterans are in the area that would utilize that. So it's going to be very difficult for me to give you an impact.
And also, will this include taxes and such, like for third parties, like mixed jewelry and like to the smoke shops and stuff, or we're going to have to wrangle more paperwork for all them as well? I'm not opposed to it, but I think we need to know.
Right.
So if you could kind of have it, maybe it's a qualified impact statement other than a quantified.
Well, my understanding is that when you say tax exempt, especially with 100% disabled, it qualifies them for an exemption on food and purchases anything other than alcohol and tobacco.
Okay.
So,
We've tabled, but I know Councilor Keener had a very important question, and I know Ms. Diane Barker Harold wants to say something. So, Mr. Keener, please.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. When you do come back with your report, I still would like to see the definition, and I guess that's what you're going to be exploring, is for under Section 2 for nonprofit organizations, which I assume that would be a veteran organization that doesn't specifically.
well, nonprofit organizations can be schools,
Right, that's
churches. I mean,
That's what I wanted to define.
exactly. That
I would suggest that nonprofit corporation is probably a vast majority of groups that go to the Hard Rock and have conventions. I would suggest that's who we're giving the tax break to in part here, so we should
Right.
consider that. Ms. Barker Harold, did you?
Well, I have one more comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Tax levy rate, it says all persons. I'd like to know who all persons are. I think I know who all persons are, but we need to have that defined as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
Mr. Chair, just so you'll know, this was suggested to make this part of this act instead of doing a separate act that Council Christian Hopkins asked for to put it in this act. But there's really no definition to veterans in that.
Well, ours,
current act.
the current act just says it's the 100% disabled, they have to have the state's card.
Yeah,
And the state's the one that gives the definition. If they have that card, that's what we currently accept. But when we go to do our own, that means that we're going to have to set up our own definitions, our own system. How are we going to do this? How's the card going to be issued? And what tracking devices are going to be, not only for the casinos, but for all of the individual retailers also. And then all of that has to be relayed to them so that they understand what their responsibilities are. And
Thank you very much.
Chair,
Ms.
and I'll
Fundy.
become procedure.
Okay.
All right, we're now on to old business item number 2. Councilor Ray, what's your pleasure on number 2? Was that have we disposed of this one, Councilor Ray? Number 2.
On
with
number
our
2,
action?
yes, I'd like to withdraw.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, we are now on to old business item number 3. Madam Speaker.
Yes, I would like to put that forth in the form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. We have a second. Second by Councilor Fisher. Any questions? Any discussion? This is the act relating to the removal of the Election Commission from the Administrative Procedures Act. Councilor Conway.
And I would like to ask the sponsor, what's the reasoning for removing the Election Commission from the Administrative Procedures Act?
They're only asking to be removed because they see their exercise of powers coming directly from the Constitution. They have set up methods by which they conduct their meetings, and they're just asking to be taken out of this APC Act for further requirements. And I also believe Mr. Chapin, their attorney, is here. He may be able to expound on that a little bit further.
This is the same amendment that we discussed at the last Rules Committee. Basically, lose the Election Commission, since they're a constitutional entity, from the APA. The executive branch is removed in the APA. And the Commission has their own rules and procedures set up where people can appeal through their procedures and all that. And we didn't feel that it would be necessary to have them on the APA, and we certainly have a question as to whether or not the act, including them, would be constitutional. So this was on the agenda last time, with another act, and we're asking that it be considered separately at this time.
You still have the floor, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's a lot of information missing in terms of Freedom of Information Act and Open Meeting Act compliance from my perspective and the perspective of my constituents when they call and ask and they go to the website and there's not the bylaws, a lot of the things governing the Election Commission, the rules and procedures for a voter to protect their rights. Where are they? Are they in writing? Have they sought public input? I mean, when I read the Administrative Procedures Act, these are things per our Constitution that through the Constitution, the council is allowed to set out the laws that not make the decisions of, but govern the conduct of the Election Commission in terms of conducting the election, which I think our citizens are calling for. So when I hear the Election Commission and parts of the council calling for the removal of the Election Commission from these duties, it concerns me. And I needed, is the Election Commission opposed then to being more transparent and putting all those things in writing, such as how a challenge ballot is to be treated and those kind of things?
No, I think those things are, they do have rules and procedures now. They're in the process of amending those to correct or to cover some of the things that were not covered in the last election. They have bylaws and other things during the process of getting all of those things in final form, and the commission can do that. My recommendation is going to be that those things be made available to the public. They are part of the rules of how the commission operate, and I agree that the public and the people need to know that, and the council do too. So I think their intent is to do the things that you're asking through their own rules and procedures pursuant to the authority that's granted to them in the Constitution as an independent and autonomous commission. And I haven't seen any attempt to, of course, remember I've been there for 2 or 3 months. I haven't seen any attempt or attitude of the commission to operate in secret or deprive anyone of any information that they have.
And maybe just to put it from a different perspective, after reviewing what happened in 2011, what I found was missing was that there wasn't compliance with the Administrative Procedures Act in terms of allowing individual voters the ability to protect their rights, to go to the polls and actually vote. So there were a number of little things that seemed to appear to have happened, but a voter could only really get to court or to the process. I think I saw maybe a couple of letters to the Election Commission challenging the fact that they didn't get an absentee ballot. But what I saw was voters ended up going to court only through campaigns, and that limits voters. It means they have to align publicly with a candidate. It doesn't allow an individual voter to represent themselves or have representation on the right for their vote or ballot to be cast and to voice to be heard as an individual without, again, the public alignment. And because the Administrative Procedures Act hadn't been complied with, which to me was everyone's fault, including my own, that we had not made sure that a law that had been in effect for 3 or 4 years was put into place. And that's why I'm trying to challenge all of us to get to the table on it today. And I can't see removing the Election Commission because the Administrative Procedure Act is voluminous, but it's voluminous for a reason, and that it details out how we should deliberately do government in order to serve all our constituents. And I appreciate hearing that that's what the Election Commission wants to do, because I think there's going to be folks bringing those questions forward. And it sounds like they'll be responsive, which I appreciate. We're not just talking about the personalities of one elected body or one appointed body. We need to set the rules for our constituents and for the Cherokee people to know what to expect from any body, public body of the Cherokee Nation. And that would include them, especially when they're appointed and nominated and confirmed. They have no accountability other than that. And so we really need to make sure that it's outlined in full detail of what our voters should expect.
Well, I guess the response would have to be that, unfortunately, the Constitution passed by the Cherokee people created an independent election commission that shall be free from interference from the council and the executive branch. The reason for that was to ensure that they were independent, and the council and the executive branch could not influence their decisions and therefore influence an election.
Well, I take issue with that. If that was really true, then one member wouldn't be on the payroll for the former general counsel of the Cherokee Nation then and seated over there is what I understand. I mean, we need to be outlining all of this stuff so that there's truly an independent election commission from all of us. And we're not asking to decide those things for them. We're asking them to how they're going to set it out for the people to decide it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Ford, any other questions?
Yes. Maybe I'm not understanding this right, but the way I see it in the Constitution is that this council shall enact the appropriate laws, which is not consistent with the provisions of the Constitution that will govern the conduct of all elections. So this council makes up the rules and procedures, is the way I look at it. And anything different to that would be unconstitutional, or if it needed to be changed, would have to be brought before the public. I've also heard rumor about the blue card voting. And in the Constitution, it says that registered voters, outside the boundary, it says they have to be registered to vote. They may first elect to do different things to vote at large. But to have blue card voting, you'd have to also change that law, is what I'm looking at. But both of those would have to be changed by the people, and they would have to vote on it. We could bring it before the people on the 2/3 vote of this council, but we can't change anything according to the Constitution. That's the way, maybe I'm misunderstanding what's going on, but that's the way I look at it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just one more thing. If we repeal the Administrative Procedures Act, there's still a statute on the books that governs how our elections are run. the Constitution, as you point out, talks about the election commission. So would you agree that if a citizen feels aggrieved by something in the election process, they still have access to the court? They can still say, well, the statute is not being complied with, or the constitutional duties have not been executed. This doesn't slam the door shut on access to the courts, does it?
No, I think that's true, and I think also that individual voters have from time to time to do and have the right to present an item to this commission for consideration. And they take up those items, whether it be registration or what district they're in or whatever it might be. They take up those items at their meetings on their regular agendas and make those decisions. There are procedures in place that if they're aggrieved with that decision, they have a right to appeal that decision to the courts, of course.
And if a citizen thought that the election commission was operating in secret, I mean, the citizen would surely say, well, that's a violation of the Constitution because the Constitution presupposes this to be an open process. Surely they have access to the courts to make that argument, even if we repeal this Administrative Procedures Act. I mean, so I guess I don't see this as an impediment to holding the election commission accountable. It's just a question of what context are they held accountable. The Administrative Procedures Act imposes a lot of hurdles that start to look like interference with the commission. When you all have your own rules, is kind of how I see this. Well, I appreciate your time.
The Constitution says that the council may enact laws to govern the conduct of the election. That term, does that mean everything the commission does? Does that mean only the voting procedures, if there's eligible voting, that sort of thing? The only one that can really answer that question, what conduct of the election means, is the Supreme Court. And it's a legal term. It's, quite frankly, it's somewhat ambiguous. And to actually find out what that means would require a decision by the Supreme Court. And it may be at some time that's what has to happen. But what we're asking is that the council and the executive branch observe the spirit of the Constitution, which created an independent election commission to conduct the elections, in order that they be free of influence, political influence by the council or by the executive branch. Your election law also says that the commission shall be independent and that the legislative or the executive branch shall not interfere with the election commission in the conduct of their business. So that's what we're asking. And I think I've been there for a couple of months, you know, with commission members, and I think they're going to do everything they can to have a fair and equitable election, and they're going to do what they can to provide more education and more information and more access to information than has happened in the past.
Councilor Karen Watts, you had another question, I believe.
Well, and I think that you raise a good point. You are absolutely required through Freedom of Information Act, Open Meeting Act requirements, the Constitution itself, to do all these things. So the Administrative Procedures Act, the way I understand it, is just an instrument to detail out for everyone clearly what those expectations and the path to doing those same things you're still obligated to do, even if it was repealed today. Just clarifies for the record. And I know that courts require attorneys, and the regular Cherokee citizen trying to exercise their vote would be stopped by the barrier of the cost and the time that would be included if they had to go to court. That was their only remedy. And that may be where they end up anyway, but at least the way I read the Administrative Procedures Act, that allows our citizens a clear venue to exercise their right to vote and protect that right without hiring an attorney or those costs that you would incur to go to court. And so I just cannot support removing the Election Commission from these requirements. But I appreciate understanding better what the rationale and the reasoning is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further questions for Mr. Chafin or any other discussion on the legislation? Madam Speaker.
Because they are an autonomous commission set up through our Constitution, I would encourage everyone on this body to vote yes to remove them from this process. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker. Any further discussion on the motion to approve? Now, this is an act, so we will do a roll call. Yes. Call the roll, please, Shelley.
Juliet Coates,
No.
Jody Fisher-Hawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley, Janelle Fulbright,
Yes.
John Garvin,
Yes.
Frankie Hargis, Chuck Huskey Jr.,
Yes.
Hannah Gloria Jordan,
Yes.
Lee Keener,
No.
Dick Lay,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
David Walkenstick,
Yes.
Kara Colin Watts,
No.
Bill England,
No.
Jack Baker, Joe Bird.
Before I vote, I'm going to read this one sentence here. The commission should be an autonomous and permanent entity charged with administration of all Cherokee Nation elections in accordance with election laws passed by the tribal council. I vote yes.
That's true. What was your vote, Councilor?
Yes.
We have 11 yes and 4 no.
The act passes. Now we'll move to our next item of business, which is item number 1 of new business. A resolution confirming Ms. Mackey as a board member of Cherokee Nation Community Association Corporation. Councilor Walkenstick, would you take that? Is one of our items in the book. It's in the book here. Councilor Walkenstick, it's in the book.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
That's a resolution confirming the nomination of Farrell Mackey Prater.
Councilor, it's number 1 in the book.
No.
All right, we're on it. And an act amending the legislative act.
Second.
It's a new business item number 1.
You want me to take it?
Go ahead, Tanya, go ahead.
It's a resolution confirming the nomination of Donita Mackey as a board member of the Cherokee Nation Community Association Corporation. I would put that in the form of a motion.
Second by Councilor Thornton. Any discussion? And Ms. Mackey, of course, is
She
here.
is here.
Any questions, or Ms. Mackey, do you have any words you'd like to share with us? And Councilor Coates, I'll have you on the list. Ms. Mackey, would you like to say a few words? And Councilor Coates is on the list for questions. Do you have any statement to make, or just entertain questions?
I don't, do I need to introduce myself? I'm sorry, I'm new to this process.
We know you certainly.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we move into questions? Councilor Coates, you had a question.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I have some questions and some concerns, and there's some things I'd like to just know a little bit more about. First of all, I've been I've been sent some things by constituents about something called the Squirrel Ridge Project. Can you tell me what that is? Because I think you're involved with that. Are you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's our cultural ground in Kenwood, Oklahoma, and it is an open ground. It is what we kind of consider a teaching ground where people can come and learn about culture, about language, about history, all sorts of things. It's something that we open up. We've been maintaining this project ourselves for a long time. We've had some support from the Cherokee Nation in terms of infrastructure, but we don't charge people to come, as we are told that when it comes to language and culture, we have to be very careful about how we put that out there and not charge for it and not make profit off of it. And so my husband is a teacher at the immersion school. My husband is a teacher at NSU. And so during fall and spring break, for example, he'll take that whole week and we invite anybody to come and learn language, be involved in language immersion classes for a whole week if they want. And so we've had local folks, we've had at-large folks come. It's been wonderful. We've done that for several years now.
Well, what I was informed of, and I admit I have not seen the website myself, but I was informed by a constituent that the website for the Squirrel Ridge Project is stating that it has received about $60,000 in Cherokee Nation assistance over the years. Is that coming from CAUTA? Is that, okay, so $60,000 has come from CAUTA?
No, primarily from the Community Works grant. We are in our third year of working on the infrastructure, and so we have completed a kitchen, bunk rooms for those that want to come and stay for a longer period of time, and also we are working on classrooms. This year is our primary focus, and so in our third, we've gotten about $30,000 a year. So it's actually a little higher.
Okay, so that is an accurate amount.
It is an accurate amount. We only worked through CAUTA actually once, and it's been a while.
Okay.
And so primarily that's been the Community Works.
Okay, and Community Works comes through Community Services?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, and your title is the
Director of Community Leadership,
which is also in Community
Yes.
Services.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And as I recall, when David Sutherland was introducing you to us 5 or 6 months ago when you first started, he stated that you were either going to be working, I think he said exclusively with at-large, but I know you do work with regional community organizations as well, but at least predominantly with at-large as community groups. Is that?
Well,
I mean, I think that's what I'm not asking really whether you do or not, but I think that's what Mr. Sutherland
I quite honestly don't
stated.
remember what he
Yeah.
said. It's been about 5 or 6 months maybe.
Right.
I don't know, but I know that I can't speak to what he said directly, but that's it's pretty balanced. I'm out in the at-large communities pretty often, and also the local communities, and just listening to people's needs right now, and kind of taking an assessment.
It would be fair to say that you work predominantly that for the at-large groups, you are one of the predominant workers for them. That would probably be a fair statement, along with Ryan Sierra.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Ryan Sierra does a lot of the groundwork, the legwork, and I go out and just mainly on behalf of the Cherokee Nation and Community Services, just work to establish a relationship and assess where everybody is at in their development and that sort of thing. So.
And I know at a number of community meetings, of the at-large community meetings, that you've been there and that you've been collecting a survey, right? You've been conducting a survey with them, and I have presumed that the tabulation of the survey results and then the planning of programs for the at-large based on those results is something that is part of your work. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
It is. And a big part of it in terms of the Community Association Board, it is in compliance with what we are asked to do on this board, and that is to establish relationships, to help the at-large communities have better communication with each other, have better communication in the 14 county and at-large organizations, and also presentations.
Okay. And what I've understood is that beginning in October 1 with the new fiscal year, there's going to be sort of a reorg of this whole thing. Right now, all of the work with the at-large communities and the budget for that, as I understand it, is under CAUTA, but next year this is going to go under your leadership. Is that right? Under your program, and Ryan Sierra will transfer to be working directly under you, and there will be 2 or 3 or maybe 4 additional employees working with for the at-large that will also be working under you. Is that correct?
Well, that's going to be a process as to who will be working in those positions, because that will go.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that all of the present programs for at-large are going to transition to be under you. Is that
along with other programs?
Right.
Yes.
But all of the at-large will be under you.
Yes.
Okay. What is your relationship with Rick Gassaway, the director of CAUTA, at this time? Are you his director? Are you on a parallel? I've never been clear about this. So.
I'm not his director.
But you do direct some of his employees sometimes, as I understand it, in terms of the work that Mr. Sierra in particular does.
Yes,
at the
we really I really see it more as a partnership, because I am going out into the at-large communities and local communities, and that's where all of the information is in terms of where they are and contacts and that sort of thing. So I see it more as a partnership.
Okay. Okay. So you're more of a lateral, I mean, on the same level with Mr. Gasaway, perhaps, and just directing different things. Would that be a fair way to say it?
Well, my position is a director's position, and he's a manager.
Okay.
So the hierarchy, you know, how
He actually would be under you.
But he's not directly under me. Like I said, it's more of a relationship where we just work.
So you don't,
Yes.
to put it crudely, give him orders.
I don't give him orders. I actually don't give anybody orders.
All right. Thank you so much for responding to all of this. And the reason I've been pursuing this line of questioning, I'll share with the body, is because what we have here is a situation where an employee of the Cherokee Nation is being nominated to serve on a board of the Cherokee Nation. And I think that we all realize that that's a rather irregular situation, that is normally not done here. And it is true that we have a handful of employees. I can think of 3 right off the top of my head who do serve on boards. 2 of them serve on this board, on the Cherokee Nation Community Association board. And it's Dr. Neil Morton at this time, and it has been Mr. Sutherland, but it's not the people per se, but the bylaws state that, or I think the legislation states, that it will be the Director of Education Services and the Director of Community Services. So whoever is holding those positions automatically goes on this board. And the reason that we were able to argue that this was appropriate to the IRS, because this board is established as a nonprofit board, was because neither of these individuals are directly compensated in their employment for the work that they do on the board with the at-large communities, the programs for the at-large communities, and so forth. And it's not the predominant part of their work, of their jobs. So that was the argument that we were able to make to the IRS as to why it would not be a conflict of interest for these particular employees to serve on this board. The other person I know of is Shelley Butler Allen, who serves on the Cherokee Nation Foundation board, but again, under the same argument that because she's not actually an employee of the foundation, she doesn't benefit in any way from the success or failure of the foundation, that it's not an inappropriate position. What I'm concerned about here is that we have a situation where Ms. Mackey is directly compensated. She is paid as an employee of the Cherokee Nation to do the work that this board directs to some extent, to a great extent actually. And I have very serious concerns that we are going to run into a conflict with the IRS over this because of the nonprofit status of this board. And this board is actually an overarching board, and there are 22 at-large satellite organizations, which are 990 chapters under it. And so I am very, very concerned about placing those 22 organizations into legal jeopardy. That this is a very, very close relationship here. I think it would be really advisable and a very, very good thing to have Ms. Mackey serving on the advisory board of the Cherokee Nation Community Association, just as Jack and I do. Neither of us is a voting member of this board because in the same way the decisions that this board makes could influence the political futures of both of us, I guess, since they directly impact our constituents. And in the same way, the success or failure or the direction of this board and how Ms. Mackey and her employees carry out those jobs could directly affect Ms. Mackey's compensation, her promotions, her bonuses, things like that happen in the future. And that the IRS generally regards this as a very, very direct conflict of interest. So I wanted to tease this out a little bit more because I've had this concern all along, and I continue to have this concern, unfortunately. I would like to see you on the advisory board. I think that you would have a lot to offer, and in terms of the discussions, and you always do anyway, of course, as part of the board meetings. But we're generally very, very careful about placing employees of the Cherokee Nation onto boards and commissions of this nation, that there is a very strong possibility for a conflict of interest here. that's my main concern. The other point I would make is that this board has been talking for almost a year about trying to place actual at-large people onto the board in greater numbers as well, to be able to direct it. And I know that there are some who have already conveyed their concerns to the chief that they were hoping for additional at-large people to be placed on the board rather than additional local people. So I'll just add that as well, that that's been the desire of the board. But again, my main concern is about the conflict of interest. So although I would really like to see Ms. Mackey serving in an official capacity as an advisory board member, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to support this as a voting board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kyle-Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the issues that Julia raises are correct concerning the IRS and the way I've understood your role when we've gone to meetings and such, that we're asking to put you over direct, not management or supervision, but influence on major decisions for the way this is structured. So I just see it as a conflict of interest, and I think there's nothing precluding you from going to the meetings, just like it ended up being too late by the time we got to the meeting for me to stay, but I know I could have attended and more than likely had input. So I don't see the value add for putting so much at risk by supporting this. I think that you have an alternate solution to it is to do the advisory role because I think this creates just too many problems. So there's nothing, I'm excited if you're there doing the work. I just can't support the conflict of interest that I see it creates in terms of the IRS where it risks our nonprofit organizations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. I have Councilor Lay next.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Don, thanks for being willing to take this on. This is the first I've heard of any kind of thing. I'm not sure that, I don't know, but I'd like to be added as a sponsor.
Councilor Lay.
And I think those rules could be vetted or fleshed out. If you're correct, then something else can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Keener.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if the sponsor would accept a friendly amendment to add, instead of a board member, there say advisory board member, Cherokee Nation.
Councilor, I don't think you're a person that move. Who is the moving councilor?
I made the motion and I will not accept that.
Accepted. All right. Very good. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Walking Stick, you're next.
Call for the question.
Councilor Thornton was the last one on my list. If we would yield to him.
Oh, finally. I just have one question. As a board member, this Cherokee Nation Community Association group, corporation, who from the Cherokee Nation reports to this board?
Who from the Cherokee Nation reports to that board? As far as I know, I don't know of anybody. I mean, there's got to be this, as I've studied the CNCA,
Go ahead.
there's a lot of internal work that needs to be done. There are issues with the IRS, but my employment may or may not be an issue, but my understanding is that this board just meets quarterly and that we are supposed to listen to the Cherokee people and make decisions based upon their needs. And so I don't know of anybody in the Cherokee Nation that reports to the board.
What
I mean,
people?
As far as like...
I didn't understand.
Pardon me?
What people?
The Cherokee, like the at-large, this board
The
for
Cherokee
the at-large.
people?
Yes. And through their desires and wishes, what they would like to see happen. It's very specific on what programs and those sort of things we're supposed to take out to the at-large.
The type of information that you have would be an asset to this board, looks like.
I would hope so. I would hope so. This is the sort of work I've been doing for years, just on my own.
I realize that. I know some of the things you've done. I appreciate what you've done for our people.
All right. I have two more counselors on the list, Counselor Felly, Counselor Coates. I do have one question for you. If an opinion was sought from the IRS and an informal opinion said this is going to jeopardize your nonprofit status, would you consider resigning from the board?
Absolutely.
Very good. Counselor Brown?
That's what I was on.
We think alike.
I just asked if anyone had researched this yet.
I think it would behoove the administration to do
I'm
that.
actually, I think, taking Frida Ann's place, who was a long time employee of the Cherokee Nation. And so if we need to address it now, at this point, I'd be happy to.
All right, Counselor Coates, follow-up question?
This is a vacancy by Frida Van, but again, the difference and the reason Frida was able to serve on it in her time was because this was not the totality of her employment. This was one, she organized the picnics, but other than that, she really had nothing to do with any of the at-large activities or directing them or anything like that. So it was sort of deemed to be something similar to Dr. Morton and or Mr. Sutherland, for instance, where they were not directly and largely compensated for the work with the at-large people. In response to something that Councilor Thornton had asked, and it's gone out of my mind, I'll take just a second here to recover it. The format of this board is such that it really does direct the programming and so forth. I know that for years, it's existed for about 5 years at this time, and Mr. Gassaway had always stated that he reported to the board. And so I think that would presumably be your role if you were, if all of the at-large things were moving under you. And so that's where I see the conflict of interest, is that you would be reporting to the board, but now you're on the board, so you're reporting to yourself, basically, and you're directing yourself in your employment and its success or failure and so forth. And so again, I would just state that that's the conflict. Councilor Thornton, I'm sorry, I had something to edify you about, a question that you were asking, and I'm sorry, it's gone out of my mind. If you can remember what it was you were asking, that might help me.
I think we've exhausted the discussion, with the exception of Councilor Fraley.
Mr. Chair, I'm uncertain at this point. I know you're capable, but can we table this and let her do some further research based on what her concerns are?
Well, you can make that motion. It does seem to me that these are questions that can be answered and solved with the resignation.
I second that.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, tabled for a month. Thank you, Ms. Becky.
Thank you. Whatever.
The next item of business is item number 2. Councilor Thornton, act relating to drug testing for elected officials. Councilor Byrd?
Yeah.
Or should it fail for want of a motion?
His name's on there.
This is new business number 2, Councilor.
This is an act relating to the drug testing for elected officials. I think there needs to be a little bit more clarification with that. If certain people are taking medication, there's illnesses out there, I would move to table this until we research a little bit further.
Table, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. It's tabled for a month. All right. Item number 3. Number 3 is an act related to subsidies for smoke shop retailers. That's Councilor Thornton.
Okay, this smoke shop. I thought that was 20. Oh, no, this is. Okay, this is an act relating to the subsidies for smoke shop retailers. This act provides for a 75% subsidy for the landowners based upon the lease payments made to the landowners where the retailers smoke shops are situated. 25% is to be paid to the landowners from the smoke shop retailers. The tribe will be responsible for the 75% issued from our tribal tax commission funds. And I'll make a motion that this is passed.
Second with friendly. On the friendly, Mr. Thornton, would you entertain this idea? I've been talking with some of the smoke shop owners and would ask that you consider a friendly that the payments of the subsidy would go to the retailer, that it would begin with the new fiscal year, and that we reduce the 75% to a 50% subsidy, and just make sure, a point of clarification, everybody understands we're renegotiating our compact this year, and so this subsidy would end on September 30th, 2013, when we must have our compact renegotiated. So hopefully, the negotiators will do a better job this time and take into consideration the concerns of the smoke shop owners. And I would ask Mr. Thornton if he would accept that friendly.
I think this also states that this starts October the 1st, 2012, and ends September the 30th, 2013.
I was just with a clarification on that.
And just to make sure we're clear on your friendly, it's to reduce it to 50%, and the payment would go to the retailer,
To the retailer.
rather than the landowner. Councilor?
And that was with concurrence.
I think it really needs to go to the landowner, and the reason that I really think that, because when we give it to a retailer, I think it's more like a rebate. And I think we're going to get out of that rebate business.
Well, I don't want any
Think it as a
discussion on
subsidy
it
to the
being
landowner. The landowner's payment isn't set by Cherokee Nation, it isn't set by the smoke shop operators, it's set by BIA. They set those. Okay. So I'm not going to accept it, but you have the right to go ahead and make a motion that it pass in your way. Okay?
Madam Speaker, are you then making a motion to amend?
So we'll go ahead and make that motion.
We have a second. We have a second to your motion to amend the legislation.
Mr. Chair, would you mind repeating the motion?
Yeah, the motion is to strike 75 and replace it with 50. And then it is to change the wording such that the subsidy payment goes to the retailer rather than directly to the landowner.
Rebates on the land, right?
The subsidy. Subsidize the payments that a retailer would normally make to the landowner in full. We have a second from Councilor Fishing-Hawk. Okay. Do we have any discussion on the motion to amend, Councilor Thornton?
Yeah, one reason that I really
Mr. Chairman?
didn't want this to go to 50% is because the main reason these retailers, a lot of people don't know that they have to set up a bond yearly on this. And that bond is set up so that they're bonded, and it has to be in the same amount as what the BIA says that you give the landowners. Another thing is they have to pay insurance on all this. That insurance is high also. So I'm against this, and that's just the way I feel about it. I'm very sorry.
Councilor Cowan-Watts?
First of all, just to make sure I'm in the right place, what is the actual amendment being considered right now to this legislation?
Councilor, it's to strike under the Section 3 subsidy. It's to strike 75 and replace it with 50. So the subsidy would be 50%. And it is to, we may have to work on the precise wording, but it is to, rather than have the subsidy be paid to the landowners, as it states in the legislation, to be paid to the retailers. That's the amendment that's being proposed. proposed.
That would be in section 2 as well.
Section, yes, correct,
Yeah.
Councilor. Correct, Councilor.
So, just to clarify, so the landowner, well, this would go to
This would go to the retail.
the retailer. So let me make sure, if, let's say the rent's $1,000 a month. So the retailer that's renting from the restricted property owner would pay them the $1,000, and then the tribe would give the renter the $500.
Correct.
So the landowner is not impacted. But under this existing legislation, where it's set up right now without the amendment, the $1,000, if it was $1,000, the one renting it would only get $250, would give $250, and the tribe would give $750 directly to the landowner.
Yes, there would be a direct payment.
Okay, I understand the percentage change. I appreciate that, but what would be the fundamental difference between one or the other? I mean, why would this be better to give directly to the renter rather than the landowner?
I believe, and I didn't tell him about the call line, but Mr. Lane here, he might be able to speak to why the mechanics of getting a check rather the amendment benefiting the smoke shop owners from your perspective.
Is it cash flow?
Not really. What it amounts to is the first of every month, a 10th of every month, we've got to pay the landowners X number of dollars. And we'd probably, I think the way we discussed would be apply for our half back from the tribe. And from I'm at a loss to tell you why we should do it one way or the other. All I want to do is get some, we need.
You have no preference then?
I have no
Okay,
preference.
perfect. Thank you, Mr. Lane.
While we have,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, were you done here?
Yes.
Mr. Lane, will the 50% work for this year while we're negotiating the recompact?
Well, absolutely, because we're not getting anything right now.
And we've discussed the impact on the other end of the tribe. It amounts to about in excess, I believe, of $1 million.
Correct.
And it's going to leave $500,000 for the tribe to use for services, then $500,000 would basically be distributed out to the smoke shop owners. And then we're going to be very diligent this year about working on that renegotiation and make sure whoever our negotiator is, that they hear fully the concerns of the smoke shop owners before they go to Oklahoma City to do that renegotiation.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm all for helping the smoke shop owners within reason so that we don't break the bank down here, because they support 400 families through their employment. And Mr. Lane and I have had some discussions about this.
And disagreements.
Yeah, and disagreements. What we're trying to do is hit a middle ground temporarily and try to do a better deal with the state in the coming year.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lane.
Yeah, Mr. Thornton. Mr. Lane?
Mr. Lane.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Thornton has a question.
Yes. Then what you're saying that you would be satisfied with 50% instead of 75%, you don't need the other 25? No, I'm not saying that. That's what you're saying. I'd love to have 100%. I've had a couple suggest to me make it 100. Well, it'd be fine with me, but I don't think realistically you can expect that. Due to the fact that the Creek Nation has made such a terrible compact with the state of Oklahoma, and we certainly don't want to follow, in those footsteps. But if that was to happen, you would rather have 75% on here than you would 50%, wouldn't you? I think if we get to that point in September, we'll come to you people to redo it. I hope. Well, you can always come to us, redo it no matter what. It's August or July or whatever it is. I'm sure that it's funnel up enough.
Speaking of
back
compact, the compact that the creek sign is absolutely devastating to it.
That's right.
Continue to do.
How many smoke shops we lost here in the last couple of years?
4 or 5.
4 or 5.
I know of.
And they're due, because they can't do business, right? Because it's costing too much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Keener, you have a question for Mr. Lane, or do you just have a discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you. Better stick around, Mr. Lane.
Well, this is also for Sharon as well. So just to restate, the 50% subsidy and paid to the landowners or retailers, either way, is okay with you guys, either.
The only thing I ask is that you make sure you word where the money's coming from, because it cannot come out of the tobacco compact, the tobacco fee. So you need to make sure that that wording is correct. If it's coming from general fund, because our money goes to general fund. The tax revenues all go into general fund. But if you say it's coming from the tax commission, if it says tobacco, then we're in violation of our compact. So you need to make sure how that's worded is that's my concern.
Madam Speaker, does that change your motion?
Yes, I would ask that that wording be included in the motion so that there's no question of what we're doing.
So you'd be striking the word tax commission in section 3 under subsidy, that final phrase, to general fund? Or how about from? And Councilor Keener, you do still have a floor, sir.
Well, I was going to say, and also it's still in section 2 as well.
Correct, thank you. All right. Councilor Keener, you still.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also wanted to ask you on the impact of this. I guess in regards, there's a new compact next September. Will this help us position ourselves for a better compact, or will it make any difference at all?
No, it won't make any difference, but it will help us get to the September date to sign the compact. Because right now, the creeks and their lease payments are at their maximum lease payments are $3,500, and ours are $10,000 and $11,000. How much money are we talking about? Quite a bit of difference. Yeah. And it's all because of the Bureau. I assume. That's the reason.
We'll get there. And then as far as the money available by the GEM fund, will be okay on that for the year.
That would be something that they would, and the treasurer would have to make sure that there's available money, but you guys looked at the budget, so there should be.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further questions on the motion? Madam Speaker's motion. Councilor Lake.
See, I'm still a little confused about the landowner or the retailer. Who are we giving the money to?
Under the council, under Madam Speaker's motion, it would be the retailer. Is that correct, Madam Speaker? Okay. Thank you. All right. And Councilor Thornton, you had a question.
I want to see if Joe would be all right if we just reimburse his 50% and the rest of them 75%.
Sure.
All right. So the motion again, Madam Speaker's motion is to drop to 50%, rephrase so that the payment goes to the retailer rather than the landowner, and to strike tax commission and to signify that it comes, or indicate that it comes from the general fund. Councilor Keener, does that raise a question?
Yes, it does raise a question. Thank you. And not so much as the landowner or the retailer, but this is a question for Sharon. It's based upon a monthly lease that's paid, and Joe indicated that he pays on the 10th. All the retailers pay on the 10th, or would you be cutting checks?
Okay, I don't have anything to do with their lease payments. That all goes through Realty.
Okay.
All I have is just the taxes and the licenses and things like that. As far as the lease payments, we don't have anything to do with that. It goes through Realty.
Okay. So I guess anything went from Realty?
I do not see anyone from Realty.
Well, Okay, I guess
But you got several smoke shop owners here. I'm assuming it's just whatever your contract says, but the majority of them probably are due around the 10th of the month. There was the 15th, so I'm assuming it's whatever their lease says.
Okay, well, we'll let them handle that if they want to, I guess. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Speaker.
Sharon, now, your money goes into the gen fund, then we will take this back out of the gen fund, so it's really a wash.
It's a wash, but that's something I mean, I don't want us to be in violation of that contract.
Right, but that's the way to do it.
That'd be my, it's not a
My
wash.
understanding, I don't believe this would be a wash. We're going to have to provide for whatever level that you agreed to today, we're going to have to provide for that in the 2013 budget.
That's what I was saying.
So the scoring has been done, so it's just a determination of what level. The 50% level would be slightly under $490,000. And the 75% level, $483,300.
How would you suggest we had a little set aside that could be replenished by this in our budget?
There's a couple $100,000 more than this amount, right around the highest level, that is 2011 carryover that's coming through 2012's fiscal process. It's you see it on the face of our mods every month. And if you so choose to do this, then the remaining amount of 2011 carryover is going to need to come forward up front in the 2013 comprehensive budget. It'll be a tweak to what you passed through your hearings, but we're going to go ahead and bring forward that amount, not 2012 carryover, mind you, it's 2011, that would have normally come forward with the 12 when the audit's complete. That money's in the bank, so there's no question of its availability. So that's what I would recommend.
I would ask that we utilize that carryover to the extent it takes to accomplish the 50% amount. So that would be the funding source.
Any further questions on the motion?
And then that will be,
This
that
amendment, right?
set aside
Yeah,
amount
just
will be replenished by what she puts in back into the gen fund.
You'll have to subrate to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just strictly for council ladies.
Yeah, the motion.
Just
Her
that
amendment.
motion.
Yeah, her
If
amendment.
it fails, we go back to the 75%.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Councilor Key.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the approximate cost is $483,000, is that what I heard?
50%
50%.
Yes. 483,300.
Division.
That's the estimate.
Okay, thank you. What is the division, Councilor?
The percentage and the clarification of the law on how its work funds is paid from.
All right, very good. We have a division of the question. So we're going to take a vote first on reducing the amount from 75 to 50%. Do you have a question, Councilor Wright?
I just heard a division on the question of where the money's coming
I
from.
think it was a division on the question of first taking a reduction in the percentage. Take a vote on that.
That's first.
Yes, that's first. Is that correct, Councilor Campbell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So this is a vote on only reducing the percentage subsidy from 75 to 50%. All those in favor of the reduction say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Roll call.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes, is if we accept the 50%, right?
Yes.
No.
David Walkenstick,
Yes.
Eric Allen Watts,
No.
Bill Anglin,
No.
Jack Baker, Joe Bird,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Jody Fishinghawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright,
Yes.
Don Garvin,
No.
Frankie Hargis, Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Lori Jordan,
Yes.
Lee Keener,
No.
Dick Blake.
Yes.
We had 9 yes and 6 no.
The balance of Madam Speaker's motion, which will be voted on now, would be changing the language such that the payment goes directly to the retailer and striking tax commission and replacing it with general fund, and that would apply in section 2 and 3.
And did it come from the suggested
The
area?
2011 carryover. Any questions on that part of this motion to amend? Okay. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. All right, we are now back to the main motion, and Councilor Watts, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to clarify, what was the amount, 50% then, that there'll be the economic impact?
483,300.
Okay, because I had that switch. Okay, so then the next question is on the sunset clause. It is right now, it ends September 1 regardless, even if we do not have a new compact negotiated. And I was trying to recall from the compact language, it's been some time since I've looked at it, if it's in negotiations, does that one carry through, or will we just be without a compact for that period? Would somebody more knowledgeable remind me what happens if we're not able to successfully negotiate by that time?
Councilor, I thought there was an automatic renewal provision in there, but I could be mistaken.
September 1 if we don't. Yes, so this has a sunset clause that's absolute of September 1. Larry. So there's nothing contingent upon approval with a new contract by September 1, or compact, excuse me. So what happens if we don't negotiate a new compact and it's
The compact actually renews June 30, okay? So we have to give 6 months' notice if we are going to negotiate, if we desire to negotiate a new compact. If we do not, and the state does not, it automatically renews for 5 years. But if we send them a letter stating that we want to renegotiate that compact, then we have to do that by January, I'd say January 1 or so. Mason's gone. January 1 to tell them that we're going to renegotiate that compact.
And the intentions then of the administration is to renegotiate then?
That would be my understanding. I'm not going to speak for administration, but that is my understanding.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any further questions on the main motion, which is the motion to approve this legislation? Very good. We'll move. This is an act. Council by acclamation?
Yes.
Okay. By acclamation, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Very good. Congratulations,
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. In the following committee for finance, I would ask that a motion come forward to amend what's already been sent to full council out of the budget hearings, to also include the impact of this legislation. I realize it hasn't gone to full council yet, but if it's going to be effective the first day of October, then that appropriation bill will need to be inclusive of this action.
Good advice. We'll take it. Thank you. We now move to new business item number 4, an act relating to the voting residency of citizens of the Cherokee Nation. Councilor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of an unusual situation. It doesn't affect a lot of people, but in Muskogee, the boundary line kind of runs crazy. It runs kind of southwest and northeast through the middle of the section, then go down the road. And it comes out on York Street, going through a person's house, and it kind of cuts off a closet, so to speak, and the rest of the house is inside the Cherokee Nation. And what we're trying to do is make it so they can vote inside the boundary instead of outside. So I'll read what it says here. The purpose of this act is to include residences of Cherokee Nation citizens that are at least 50% within the jurisdiction boundaries of the Cherokee Nation, so that the citizen will be eligible to vote inside the nation, and the proper district for these voters shall be assigned by the Cherokee Nation Election Commission. And I'd like to stop it right there, period. Erase those last 8 words. And I make a motion this be approved.
Second. A motion and a second by Councilor Thornton. We're in discussion, Madam Speaker.
Don, what 8 words were you erasing?
The last 8 words,
And 27?
and number 2.
And
Could you read it one more time? I'm sorry. Could you read it for us one more time?
Yes.
How you want it?
Purpose. All I want to do is eliminate the last 7 words in that section 2.
Counselor, are you saying the phrase "and this act is for voting purposes only"?
Yes, take it out.
We would strike that.
Joe.
Yes. Yeah, Councilor Walkie's too.
Hey, Councilman Garvin, what's you have a measurement of 50%? What is that in relation to miles or? I'm not clear.
Well, as you look at the house, in this picture, we show the map. As you look at it, the right side is in Cherokee Nation. The left side is in Creek Nation. As you look at it, it cuts off the corner of the house. It might be a closet or might be
So it's 50% of the property that is on the line?
This is probably 90% inside the boundary and 10% out. So it's not 100% in, it's not 100% out. It's kind of a 90-10 situation.
So if the property is 50%, say it cuts right down the middle of the house, then we're going to let them vote inside the jurisdiction?
We cut halfway in the middle?
Yeah, is that what you're saying, 50%?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lang.
Could I ask a question?
Certainly.
Don, it looks like maybe they have a non-Cherokee Nation address because of the road up front. Is that why they can't vote now? Probably?
I'm not sure why they can't vote right now. I think they said it's because they're not inside.
So we geodated it maybe and we didn't get it right? Or?
No, I don't know what map they use, but we're using geodata.
Oh, this is?
This is geodata. The address is out in Creek Nation on York Street.
And
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions for Councilor Coates?
Do you know of anybody except this one residence that's in this situation, or is this? I mean,
There could be others, but that's the only one I know of.
So we're basically accommodating one.
Been on the council a long time. This is
Not
one
going to make a huge impact on anything.
If you ask people downtown, they'll say York Street's the dividing line, or they'll say Country Club, and it's neither one.
I see. Thank you. Madam Speaker.
I would like to limit it to this one situation, because I see we could be opening a whole can of worms, folks. I would ask Mr. Garvin, Councilor Garvin, would you consider us reforming this act enough for it just to be for this one tragic situation?
That'd be fine.
So that we don't, I mean, there's a whole, we may be taking all of Julia's folks.
I've got plenty. That's fine.
And the other reason is I know the election board is on the edge of their chairs, like they're ready to explode. So I think if we limit it to this one situation that Mr. Garvin has brought forward to us, we would be better off.
And I think it's perfectly within our right to decide what the word residence means for the purpose of voting or any purpose. So we could do it broadly as it's drafted, is my opinion, or we could do it and limit it to this one situation, which that seems to be a friendly amendment that was accepted by Councilor Garvin. I can't recall his second. Councilor Thornton, do you accept it?
Yes.
Councilor Thornton, or do we need to take some time to reword this, or do we need to get...
I think we need to get with our council attorney so that it could be reworded to specify this one situation, which I'm in total agreement with Mr. Gardner. This is a very tragic situation, but I also see that we may be relining our whole process, and I'm not sure that we're prepared to do that at this time.
And you could say the purpose of this act is to include the resident of a Cherokee Nation citizen residing and put the address in. We could do it any number of ways. But Councilor Garvin, is this a time-sensitive matter where we need to redraft this right now?
We have plenty of time.
Okay, then tabling it for a month might be in order. Councilor Lay.
If you're going to take it.
Okay, Councilor Walkstein.
Looks like there's a double wide chair house that's got their porch.
We're going to ask them to move that. We'll put that in the legislation.
Less than 50%.
Mr. Garvin, what we could do is just move this to the end of the agenda, and you and our legal counsel could work out the wording and then bring it back today.
That'd be fine.
Would that just table it to the end of the
Yes,
agenda?
very good.
So that the proper wording can be worked out between the legal counsel and the good counselor from the study?
Before I hear your motion, Councilor Lay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here's our election commission and/or the geodata folks should have been able to pinpoint this house and say they're in the Cherokee Nation. Because here's what's going to happen. I've got some people in certain areas up in Mains County who live on the wrong side of the road, go to Hastings, or who live, but their address shows they're in, but they're not. And they can't get health care and they can't get something else because of these addresses. And this is probably a Creek County address, is what I'm guessing here. That's why somebody said they're not in the district, in your district. And I'd rather see our election commission and or the geodata people shoot that house and say they are in. Because otherwise, my folks who are just barely, and Meredith's folks who are just barely out from getting services are going to come to us and want to do the same thing. That's just.
Thank you, Councilor. Pastor, did you have a motion to table the end of the meeting?
Yes, I did.
All right, we have a second on that?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we're going to move this to our very last item of business. Now we go on. We are now on new business item number 5. Madam Speaker?
Yes. We are canvassing other tribes and being diligent in our effort to try to clean this situation up. So I would ask for it to be tabled for a 1 month period
Motion
of
to
time.
table. Councilor Fitzgerald, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Table the next month. Item number 6, discussion of possible action on the constitutionality of the Voter District Act of 2012. Madam Speaker.
I'm sorry, I meant to hand these out quicker. Let's have some of them go that way and some go this way. This is a resolution to authorize the filing of a friendly suit against the Election Commission seeking a declaratory judgment regarding the Voter District Amendment Act of 2012. In a nutshell, what I'm asking the council to consider is to authorize our attorney to file, where's our attorney? Oh, okay. Maybe Doug, you could get her. It would authorize our council attorney to move forward so we can get a decision from the court. Did we do the redistricting right? Did we do it wrong? Is it going to be as is? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? Folks, we've got an election coming up and we need to get an answer. And I think this is the fastest, quickest way to get that answer. So I'm asking that we move this resolution forward. When it comes out of this body, if the majority of you are in agreement to do this, then she can immediately get a lawsuit into the court system and all necessary parties can jump in and we can get the decision.
Is that a motion to approve, Madam Speaker?
Yes, second.
All right, we have a second by Councilor Fishing Hawk, and we have discussion. I had Councilor Karen Watts have raised her hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So will this reflect the majority that's already passed the unconstitutional act in the lawsuit, or will it actually reflect everyone's questions about the constitutionality of the act?
Madam Speaker?
Anybody will be able, once that lawsuit's filed, they can jump in and get all their questions answered if they desire to do so.
True. It's certainly the position of the council that it was a valid act that was enacted. Those that disagree could file amicus briefs, but I would anticipate, as with any other situation in which our law is under scrutiny, that if we just pass the law, then the body takes the position that it's valid.
Well, we've got to give the election commission some relief. They've got to be able to move forward with this election that we're going to have next spring. As best I can tell, this is the fastest way for us to get in there, get the questions answered. I believe it's valid. A majority of us believe it's valid, or it wouldn't have been voted into law. But there are questions by others that it's not, so let's just get it in court and get it done. And that's my motion.
Any further discussion? Councilor Cameron?
Thank you. For the record, I think this is very disconcerting to have a full resolution of such magnitude passed out at the meeting at 2 hours in concerning such an important lawsuit with such a vague agenda item. And I hope that we don't make that a practice. Thank you.
And I believe earlier, Madam Speaker, we heard that we'd be in court next week on this issue. So
yeah,
it sounds like we're going to be in court anyway next week, whether we pass this or not, but this will give us a good vehicle to get this before the courts. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the resolution?
Mr. Chair, was the motion to approve this,
Yes.
file a lawsuit? And then I heard you say something about when this body approves it, you mean the Rules Committee, or are you talking about going through full council, the full process?
And Meredith, I may stand corrected, but I think that once the body approves the lawyer going forward with something, that we can go ahead and get it started.
Without full council?
Well, I believe that's the way we've been able to do it in the past, but I may stand corrected. It's a will of this body, and everyone sits on the Rules Committee. If it should be the will of this body, and I'm just making the statement that every councilman sits on this committee.
Further discussion on the resolution? Councilor Fishing Hawk?
Isn't this what you did last time when you asked for the same amount of judgment based on the staggered term?
I think there was an emergency, so we did.
Yeah, just come right out of the rule.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm saying is it's getting to be an emergency because these folks on the back row sitting back here don't know whether to go forward or run in place. And we've got to get this settled, and it's becoming critical, folks. So that's my motion, and I would. It's pretty straightforward. It's less than a half page. Shouldn't be that hard for us to make a decision on it.
Councilor Keener?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we're saying is that we as a council cannot provide a constitutionally valid reason for passing the act we just passed, and we're going to have to take it to
Is that
court.
question directed to me?
No, that's a rhetorical question.
Then I'll answer your question. It's clear from the rhetoric that we are headed to court. History tells us that if we're headed to court on redistricting, we better get there sooner rather than later. So if we're headed to court anyway, if folks in full council, in committee, and in the media have declared this act to be unconstitutional, I suspect we're getting to court. I haven't seen us in court yet, but the clock is ticking. And so what this is saying is it recognizes the reality of the situation, which is that somebody is declaring this in their own mind, in their own terms, unconstitutional. Let's test that claim in court rather than continuing to test it in press releases, in full counsel, et cetera. Let's get this issue resolved by the branch of government that's suited to resolve it. Councilor Conwatts?
I believe the Supreme Court ruled in 2010 that the Election Commission does not have standing in this case, actually.
Well, that'll be a question for the court to decide in this instance. I think that we have standing to file the suit, certainly. And since the commission is charged with enacting the statute we just passed, then it does seem to me they're an appropriate party. Any further discussion?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. This resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Roll call.
Joe Byrd,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Jody Fisher-Cott,
Yeah.
Meredith Fraley, yes. Jeff Fulbright,
Yes.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Frankie Hargis, Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Hannah Glory Jordan,
Yes.
Lee Keener,
No.
Dick Blake,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
No.
David
Yes.
Walkenstick, Kara Cowan Watts,
No.
Bill Anglin,
No.
Jack Baker, Ten yes and 5 no.
Resolution passes. We are now on to the additional items. Memory as to the order we were going to do the.
Number 7 is Farrell Prater to the registration committee.
Madam Speaker, would you take Ms. Prater's that for me? I don't have it. I'm trying to find it here.
Is Ms. Prater here?
She is.
You said when you come up that she would.
If you'd make the motion.
Yes. This is the resolution confirming the nomination of Farrell Prater as a member of the Cherokee Nation Registration Committee. I put that in form of a motion, and she is here to answer questions.
We have a second to that motion. Second by Councilor Lay. And Ms. Prater, welcome. Glad that you've stepped up and are willing to serve in this way. And you have a fine reputation in the community as being a leader, and you have a background in genealogy too, correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Do you have anything to share with us? And certainly councilors may have questions.
I love doing research. It's been my lifetime love since 1985. And I just enjoy the research because it gives me history, the past as well as the present, and what I can sort of expect for the future.
Very good. Very good. Any questions for Ms. Prater? Councilor Karen Watts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I have questions of Ms. Prater, can you refresh my memory? Because I know that the section in the Constitution is very brief about the role of the registration committee and how often they meet and what their compensation is.
Are you asking me a question about the Constitution, Councilor?
No, I'm asking about the registration committee members and the nominee in front of us, the role.
Okay.
I don't know if somebody's here from administration who's nominated her could speak to this. I'd hope the registrar would be here.
Do you have anyone from administration speak to this nomination? It appears that we do not. Any other questions, Councilor?
So So is the only role of the registrar committee is to review applications and approve or deny?
I believe that is true.
While that's being considered, I don't know if somebody from the administration can come over and speak to, I couldn't recall if it was an internal policy on regulations on how the registration committee was actually structured and the rules they had to follow and their duties and obligations. Can we ask for somebody to come over and speak to that?
We certainly can. I see Diana Turtle's in the back. Could you find somebody in registration that can speak to some of these issues?
And in the meantime, I do have questions. Beryl.
Very good. Very good.
May I continue?
Do you have a point of order, Madam?
I was just going to answer that one question for you, what the Constitution says about the registration committee.
It's right here in front of me. I can read it. But I think there's more to it. Is what I recall. Okay, thank you. So in the meantime, thank you for being with us today. Now, do you understand the confidentiality of the documents within the registration committee?
Yes, I do.
And you will honor that confidentiality?
I will.
Okay, and the Cherokee people voted overwhelmingly on the citizenship issue concerning the non-Indian freedmen. But maybe our interactions locally have indicated something different. So will you follow the laws of the Cherokee Nation in regards to the citizenship or non-citizenship of freedmen applicants?
Yes, I will.
And how do you understand what that law is today?
I understand that according to the government books, if you have a roll number as a Cherokee under the 5 civilized tribes of the state of Oklahoma, you have a roll number that has a white card, and you have a Cherokee Nation blue card. And that's how that you are identified as being a member.
So we have groups within the Dawes rolls, even the Cherokee rolls. So if they are not descended by Cherokee by blood, or Shawnee by blood, or Delaware by blood, and they're only descended from non-Indian freedmen rolls, how would they be classified? And is there a difference between one class of those folks versus another legally?
That will be under the jurisdiction of the Cherokee Nation to make those rules, and that I would provide that.
Okay, so because the way I understand it is we have a class under a lawsuit that would be allowed citizenship, and I believe they should already have citizenship at this time. They're in pending litigation. But if there was somebody new to come in, they would not be allowed to be citizens, even if they were descended from the freedom rolls, if they're not in that class of lawsuit.
Whatever I am instructed as far as the requirements of the registration, I will abide by.
Okay. And do you understand the increasing problems we have around fraudulent groups and individuals claiming to be Cherokee?
I do not.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Prater? Madam Speaker?
I would like to be added as a sponsor.
Very good. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Coates, I apologize. We didn't hear you. Yes. Councilor Coates.
Okay. I just have a couple more personal questions, I guess, and I won't, not personal, but your resume here says that you have done genealogical work with your own family, with your mother's side and your father's side. Have you done genealogical work for other people as well, or is it predominantly in your own family?
Yes, I have. I work at the Claremore Library every Monday from 3 until 7 doing the 5 civilized tribes of Oklahoma, plus any other tribe that has an application that they want to find out about their ancestors.
And then the other thing, I know that you were in the Cherokee Nation history course probably 10 years ago. Sometime
Yes, I
remember
was.
you from that class.
And you were there.
And I taught it. And I couldn't remember because I know a number of the people from the Mackey family, and Ryan sent a bunch of his relatives to the class, and I just was wondering if you were related, because I see the Mackey name, I didn't remember.
There is a distant relation.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
but
That's
not a
just
direct.
Okay, that's my own curiosity. Thank you. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Campbell-Watts?
May I be added as a sponsor too, please?
Certainly.
And if we don't have answers, 'cause before we vote, I think we should have what that role is and the compensation and such too.
Okay. Madam Speaker?
As I understand it, it appears there's no compensation.
Okay.
And the role is the role that's set out in the Constitution under Article 4, Citizenship, Section 2A.
And that's, we don't have any, sorry to, but, okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Prater.
Counselor England, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Farrell, you're stepping forward and take on this responsibility and everything. But I would like to be added as a sponsor.
Very good. Let me recap the sponsors. In addition to what's on our paper, Councilors Lay, Councilor Fishing Hawk, Councilor Fulbright, Councilor Anglin, Councilor Cherokee-Watts, Councilor Garvin, Councilor Keener, Councilor Bird. Does everyone want to be a sponsor? Okay. I think everybody wants to be a sponsor. Everybody but Steve.
Everyone but me. I'm joking.
All councils. All councils. Okay. All right, this is a resolution. Councilor Campbell-Watts, do you have the information you need to proceed to vote?
The only thing I think was how often do they meet was the only thing that wasn't answered.
Would you be satisfied with getting that before full council?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Congratulations. What's our next item? Ms. Barker? All right, our next item is resolution to the same committee. Madam Speaker, would you take this one from Ms. Barker?
Yes. This is a resolution confirming the nomination of Betty Barker as a member of the Cherokee Nation Registration Committee. And Ms. Barker has been very kind, sat here on the front row all afternoon, and is here to answer questions. And I put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Second, and I'm going to let Ms. Barbara Harrell say something first. I think she knows this lady.
It is my pleasure, this may not be a secret, but it's my pleasure to introduce my mother, Betty Barker, to the council.
And Ms. Barker, we won't hold that against you.
Councilor Campbell-Watts, do you have some
I would
questions?
love to be added as a sponsor. I thought I replied by email, but I think I didn't ever get sent.
The whole.
And at the same time, too,
Same way, everybody.
thank you for taking on this service, because I know that your reputation in this area is impeccable. You're well-known in researching our families, our history, our genealogy, which is such an integral part of this job, I believe. Like when I think of Jack Baker and the family tree of the Cherokee Nation running around in his head, you're also in that category. So. Oh yes, and David Hampton, and you run with that same crew, so that's very good. So I think you'll make an excellent addition. And thanks for sharing your daughter with us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Ms. Barker, thank you for being here and for being willing to serve. Do you have any words you'd like to share with us before we proceed to a vote?
No, I think it is an honor to serve my tribe.
Very good.
And I have the genealogy for many years, and our families have long lives. And I'm not going to even cross. Way down the line. But thank you for considering me, and I feel an honor. And with the rules and regulation of the registry, and look forward to serving if you should so desire.
Well put. Well put. Any questions, further questions for Ms. Barker? All right. Hearing none, this resolution, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Congratulations. Next item is the nomination of Miss O'Leary, and as Shelley pointed out to me earlier, the registrar is always on the registration committee under the Constitution, but I guess historically we've gone the step of confirming her in committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
She is here, Mr. Chairman.
She is here.
So could we have her maybe speak a little bit more to the role of any other guidelines and how often those folks meet, if we need to consider
That'd be fine.
reimbursement for mileage or something?
Miss O'Leary, could you speak to any of that?
And also, administrative management.
Okay, okay, could you both come to the podium, please?
Good afternoon, Council.
So Councilor Kamwatt's question is, how does the committee work in terms of how it meets, how it's compensated, and things of that nature? How often it meets?
Just do you want to start out with that and then I'll finish up?
Sure. In the past, usually the registration committee consists of the chair, which is Linda, and 2 assistants, which is, I guess, up for nomination today. In the past, we did not meet regularly, to my knowledge, when Leila was still the registrar. So I think since we got a fresh start now, I think that's something we probably need to get back on track, to have regular meetings and to have the registration committee meet again. We talked about having a once a month meeting, kind of to come down, talk about any updates to the assistants and inform of any new policies or changes, or to come down and just meet with us. And
Councilor Kamwatt.
Thank you. Would it be possible to maybe get an update from those meetings on any highlights from the meetings sent over to the council then?
We can check on that.
Not regarding necessarily individuals.
That's what I was starting to say. We have to consider the confidentiality.
Absolutely.
You know, we can give you some numbers probably, but as far as exact names or information or what they're ineligible for, or what the things of people being involved, I don't know that we can do that due to the confidentiality.
So just to clarify, it's just policy, if there's policy changes and those kind of things, those kind of high level updates, if we can have a heads up.
Sure, sure. It's not a problem.
Thank you.
And if Linda has any issues, then these 2 assistants will be there to help confer, talk about any issues that may come up or things like that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Congratulations again.
So, Madam Speaker, do you have some information?
Yes, the 2 ladies that we are moving forward to put on the board are both having to travel some distance to get to Tahlequah so that they can attend meetings. And I noticed that we've got no compensation here. I would like to suggest in the form of a motion $150 plus their mileage so that they, I know that they're honored to serve, but we do need to cover a little bit of their expenses to be on here. Would that be something that can work into your budget over there?
I think that would be possible, yes.
Linda, I don't think we can pay you because we're already paying you.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we could pay the two other members.
And Madam Speaker, are you content to just go with the assurances from the registrar that she'll look
Yes.
into this rather than...
I would withdraw that motion and just ask the registrar if she would consider setting that up, because normally it is done.
Honestly, I'd like to set that up for $250 a month if that would be
Okay.
possible.
Okay.
And mileage also, and their participation, because we do have ineligibles that we may discuss, or situations where we need some input into certain things. We're not anticipating any policy right away. We could have something coming up within the next month.
Yeah, a couple months.
Or a couple of months, and so therefore we have input into that, and if that can be done, we would greatly appreciate it.
If Linda, if you would handle that through your department as others have, I'll just withdraw my motion. Or would you feel more comfortable with the motion?
Yeah, we got enough money to pay for knowledge and.
I mean, tank of gas is costing $75 now, and, well, I guess it depends on what you drive, isn't it? Some of it's electric.
Yeah, mine drinks it pretty good.
I'll withdraw my motion then, and just, that'll be a suggestion to the department.
We can handle that.
Thank you.
It's good to see you both.
All right, thank you, Council.
Right, so we approved Ms. O'Leary, correct? So, okay, we are now on to the next item of business, which is the Registered Security Officer Act. Councilor Baker and I are co-sponsors. We did vote on her, yes. Yeah, we did. Councilor Baker and I are sponsors on this, but he's not here. I need somebody to move this for get us into discussion. Madam Speaker moves for approval, second by Councilor Fishing Hawk. Marshall.
I'm here for any questions, but also on page 2, we just found this today. Under 1272.1, they mistakenly took out accepting the authorized line of duty as an undercover officer. We need that left in the act itself.
Somebody make a friendly amendment to.
So move.
We've got a friendly amendment. Madam Speaker, you accept?
Yes.
You accept. Marshall, would you just give us in a nutshell what this legislation would accomplish?
Yes, I will. Right now, we have armed security officers in the casinos. They're actually reserved marshals for us because the way the law states now, they have to be a law enforcement officer under the marshal service to carry a firearm. This puts some liability on the marshal service as well as violates CLEAT's rules on reserve officers. You can't work with a reserve officer 40 hours a week, those type of regulations that we have. So the casino has to work their armed officers 40 hours a week. Second, we have a training issue. CLEAT just passed the reserve training calendar that's almost 6 months of training, 3 nights a week, several weekends to become a reserve officer. Some of the people that apply for these positions don't want to be police officers. They want to protect the assets of the tribe and work at the casino. This puts undue stress on, quite frankly, the hiring to the scene, trying to find people to be hired on, and also to keep their qualifications. The armed part of this, the armed officer part, they would have to get their Oklahoma State Armed Guard license, so they are vetted that way as far as a background. And all those approved applications will come to my office, just like the reserve application, and then we will do a background to make sure that I can give them a weapon permit to carry. We'll have the same ability, the marshals have the same ability with this act as we do now anyway. Right now I can pull a reserve commission, and there's not much appeal process on that side. So if we see something in the background, they do something out of line, we can pull that ability to carry a firearm. That stays in this act as well.
Any questions for the marshal? All right, this is an act. Mr. Thorne?
Yeah, does this include the Open Carry Act?
It does not. We did not address any of the Open or Concealed Carry Act, which would be the civilian version. This would be just like if you worked at Burns Security or Wackenhut or Gilcrease Art Museum. They have armed officers there. It's the same way the state of Oklahoma allows them to have armed officers working.
Does this still allow the city or the county to come into the...
Yes.
Okay.
It does not.
Cross-deputized is still there.
It has no effect on the cross-deputization.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions, Mr. Keener?
I'd like to be out as a sponsor, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Keener is a sponsor. Mr. Lay, do you have a question? Yes, sir.
I'd like to be a sponsor.
Okay, Mr. Engel is a sponsor. Mr. Lay, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will we become the hiring agency then?
No, we will not. It will stay the same as it is now. C&E will do the hiring. They will pay for the training like they're doing now. They will do the backgrounds for their state license, just like they do now with their Oklahoma CLEAT police officer license. Now it'll be the Oklahoma CLEAT security officer license. Once that's done, then that application comes to me for approval that they can actually carry that firearm on any.
So C&E is the hiring agency?
Yes, they are, and they will remain that.
Thank you.
I I know Council be
Added as a sponsor. I've got Councilor Keener, Anglin, and Madam Speaker as
Count me in.
additional sponsors. And, Mr. Snell, Mr. Garland. And Mr. Thornton, you had a question?
No, he just answered.
Oh, he just answered. Further questions? Councilor Fitching-Hawk also is a sponsor. Any further questions? All right. This is an act.
Got another question.
Mr. Thornton, go ahead.
Are you talking about relieving the marshals from the casinos?
No, sir. This is only would affect the armed security officers that actually work for the casino.
Okay, then you would not supervise those people either?
No, and I don't do that anyway.
Okay.
So it would not change any supervision that we currently have right now.
Well, why would the casino need the marshals?
For law enforcement duties, to actually put somebody under arrest, we would have marshals that would go out and do that. So a security officer can detain a person. Let's say somebody gets in a fight at a bar at the casino. A security officer can detain, just like they're doing now, until a marshal or West Siloam or Salisal or Catoosa PD, whatever law enforcement entity can get there to effect the arrest. So it doesn't change their ability to stop criminal activity.
Thank you.
Councilor, further questions? Madam Speaker, we take this by acclamation?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you, Mark. All right. Are we on our? This is our final item of business. We tabled something to the end, so we're next one. Our next item is Councilor Thornton's Tribal Council Oversight C&B. Councilor Thornton, you want to take that?
Yes, I brought this back and reworded some of it. It's a resolution authorizing the filling of a friendly suit. No, this is the wrong one. Okay. I thought that was yours. This act should be referred to as the Tribal Council Oversight Cherokee Nation Business Act shall be codified. The council shall have the power to establish laws which it shall deem necessary and proper for the good of the nation, which shall not be contrary to the provisions of the Constitution. That's legislative history. Statute that once the Board of Directors of Cherokee Nation Business has selected the candidate for CEO, the Tribal Council of the Cherokee Nation shall have final approval of the CEO for Cherokee Nation Business. The compensation package to hire that individual, and also the right to terminate the contract by a 2/3 vote of the council. I make the motion that's approved.
Motion in a second. Second by Councilor Lay. Any discussion on the act? Do we have anyone from C&B here? Okay, just checking. Slighting's outside. Madam Speaker, did you have?
Yes. David, I'm just trying to make sure. Last month, we voted down approving the CEO, and we left that to the board that we've all voted and put in place. Is that right?
I don't know if we left it to the board, but we voted down how that was worded.
And that was to approve the selection of the CEO, right?
That was part of it.
So this one comes back to approve that once they've selected the CEO, we're still wanting to approve the CEO, and we want to decide the compensation package. Is that right?
We want to look at this compensation package. I certainly want to look at one to make sure that the CEO doesn't receive $2.6 million when they leave the business. I certainly want to try to overlook the funding of the Cherokee Nation, and this is the largest funding entity that we have. And I think that this council needs to be looking at these things, and that's why I brought it back.
I've seen different acts brought back before. I don't know that that's questionable, but in the past, but that's where I'm at.
Anything further, Madam Speaker?
I call for the question.
Well, I think Councilor Walking Stick had a question. Do you have anything else, Madam Speaker?
Not at this time.
Okay. Councilor Walking Stick?
Again, my question on this is why wasn't this done years ago when Dave Stewart was here?
Years ago, when David Stewart was here and when they first come in, Cherokee Nation businesses or enterprises was at a flat rate. They didn't pay the state anything. I didn't pay the Cherokee Nation anything. The only thing that was keeping this council going and keeping our paychecks going was smoke shops, mostly. And at that time, they wasn't making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars a year.
Well, let me clarify.
Now they're making 600 million.
Maybe 8 years ago, 4 years ago, when we were making millions. How come we didn't have this legislation put in place then?
I think I brought it forward one time that was voted down.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. Thank you, Cherokee.
I think this kind of goes back to the basic framework that we set out years ago, which is to set up a business which would have its own governance through its corporate board, and that the political side would be in some distance to that. There's always a balance to be struck. I do wonder if this goes too far towards control by elected officials, and I also more specifically wonder if, and Sean, you're the CEO now, and as far as I'm concerned, I hope you stay that way for as long as you want it, but at some point there may be occasion to search for a CEO, and I wonder if the candidate pool would look at this and say, I can be removed by 2/3 of the council, my compensation package is subject to, the shifting political winds. And maybe it should be. I think Councilor Thornton's point is that this is the people's branch and we got a responsibility over these funds. But I do think the basic idea, which was set in place years ago, is that we have a separate corporate board that is responsible to us indirectly through the board members and through laws that we pass. But I just have, I don't think I can support this. I understand the spirit in which it's offered. That's where my kind of heartburn comes in on this issue. But I appreciate the councilor's leadership on bringing it up. Anything further, Councilor?
No, this isn't anything to do with Sean, the name. This has to do with the position. I think Sean is an interim. If anybody wanted to hire him, I'd probably be the first one to make the motion to hire him. And that's the way I feel about it. I was on the board in 97 when he come aboard, and we hired him back then. And it's been the best thing that's ever happened to the Cherokee Nation Enterprises and the board, as far as I'm concerned. So you got to, put that under fact. But we've got things that have gone on in the past that shouldn't have gone on. And that's the way I look at this. And Sean had nothing to do with it. So thank you for being here, Sean.
Anything further? Okay. This is an act. Question's been called. We'll do roll call.
Meredith Riley? No. Janelle Fulbright? No. Don Garvin?
Yes.
Frankie Hargis? Chuck Hoskin Jr.?
No.
Hannah Gloria Jordan?
No.
Lee Keener?
Yes.
Dick Lay?
Yes.
Curtis Snell?
No.
David Thornton?
Yes.
David Walkenstick?
No.
Kara Cowan Watts?
Yes.
Buell Anglin?
Yes.
Jack Baker? Joe Berg?
No.
Julia Coates?
No.
Jody Fishing Hawk?
Yes.
We have 7 yes and 8 no.
We'll get it there. Refresh my memory, Shelley. What did we?
New business 4.
Spend the number.
Mr. Garvin's
Mr. Garvin's legislation. Mr. Garvin, do we have some new wording?
She's working on it. I don't know if she's finished or not, but we, I think, decided to do it from one location, and that's it. That's what she's typing up. So,
Could I ask that we recess till the end of executive and finance and come back and address that question before we go home today?
That would be fine.
That would give her enough time to work on it and get her done, and we come back in and vote on it.
beginning of next meeting.
Well, we're gonna reconvene this meeting after E&F. Is that correct, Madam
Yes,
Speaker?
it
That's your
would just
motion.
be a recess till we get the next meeting done, or maybe it's done. Are you done?
I'm gonna make sure that this is what you want it to say, that it's ready.
To give you all time and make sure the wording's right, why, Dawn, could we go ahead and recess, start the other meeting, get that done, and then come back and do this one?
We have a motion to recess for
It's ready.
for 5 minutes. Is this?
Tweet
Okay, we have a motion to recess. We'll reconvene after E&F, correct, Madam Speaker?
Yes.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We're recessed.
Can we reconvene in 5 minutes for that next meeting?
For E&F. We will reconvene. Shall we call the roll?
Chet Hoskin Jr.
Here.
David Walkingston.
Here.
Bill England.
Here.
Jack Baker. Joe Byrd.
Aye.
Julia Coates. Here. Jody Fishingham. Here. Meredith Fraley. Janelle Fulbright. Here. Don Garvin. Frankie Hargis. China Glory Jordan.
Present.
Lee King. Dick Clay.
Here.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
David Thornton.
Present.
Eric Allen. Ani. We do have a quorum.
Shelley, councilors, we're going to return to what was new business item number 4. Councilor Garvin, do you have a substitute you'd like to move?
Yes. It starts out, whereas the Cherokee Nation Geodata's department map reflects that over 50% of the residents located at 2550 South York Street in Muskogee lies within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Cherokee Nation. Whereas that the individual who currently resides at this location is Gary McGee, as an enrolled member and citizen of the Cherokee Nation. Whereas this address should be determined to be within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Cherokee Nation, and that the current resident, Gary McGee, shall be a voter within District 30. Be it resolved by the Cherokee Nation that the residents located 2550 South York Street, Muskogee, Oklahoma, is hereby determined to be within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Cherokee Nation, and that the current resident, Gary McGee, shall be a voter within District 30. And we have an aerial photo that shows definitely the house is inside the Cherokee District. So I make a motion to be approved.
Second.
Second by Councilor Carrick, Countywide, Madam Speaker.
Yes, I would like to recognize the election commission. I believe that Mr. Horton has some concerns that he would like to express to the group. They've waited patiently all day. I think when they saw this issue was on the agenda, so I certainly think we need to hear them out.
Okay, I was appointed to the commission in March, and this was the first decision that we've made, and we've never had another that has been in this perspective. I've got the maps that we went by. I'd like to give every one of you one that we went by, because that's all we could go by is what we had at that time. You care to take one and pass it down?
Councilor Garvin, did you have a question?
What he's passing out is not a map, more of a sketch.
Okay.
Doesn't show the house at all.
Okay, Mr. Horton, what can you tell us about
All right,
this?
on that map there, if you look at it, David Justice, we got this map from David Justice. It came from the GEO down at Cherokee Organization election addresses. And this is what we were given at the time when we made this, before we made this decision. We made our decision, and I told the commission, I said, if I'd like to see everybody that's in the Cherokee Nation be able to vote. But I said, this map right here, if you look at it, it says Zoom, and that, David said that's where the house is, in the red dot. So we made our decision, and we voted on it, and we said he would be at large. We haven't heard a word from that man or anything since we made that decision. We sent him a letter to tell him that he could not be in the Cherokee Nation because his house showed in the map that we had that he was outside the boundaries and he could vote at large. And I don't know, we come up now, it was March, now we got April, May, June, July, August, we got 5 months, now we've got 3 maps. Mr. Garvin had 2 maps, and we got the one we went by. So we made our decision, and we voted, and we said he was at large. We've heard nothing from him. All I heard from is Mr. Garvin. And I just don't understand how the council can make a vote and tell us at the Cherokee Nation Election Commission that we got to go back and change our vote. I don't see how you can do that. Y'all don't need us if y'all going to do that. Y'all need to be the election commission and not us if you're going to change what we do.
Mr. Garvin, I had you next on the list if you have a question or comment.
Well, he's claiming this is a map, but it's not a map. It doesn't even show the house. My map shows the house, arrow wheel, and it's obvious. If you look at it, it's inside the boundary. It's pretty obvious. It's a no-brainer.
Does your map say GEO?
Yes,
I don't see anything GEO. It says Google to me, like it come off the computer.
Come from David Justice.
This came from David Justice. When we had this,
That's not a map.
This is GEO. This is.
What's your point of order, Councilor?
This is genealogical earth observation.
In our chambers.
I understand. Mr. Horton, we appreciate that you presented the map and do welcome your comments. And Councilor Garvin, do you have any further questions for Mr. Horton?
Well, I think they made a decision without knowing where the house was. And it's not your fault. It's just you go into this piece of paper, which is not a map. It doesn't show the house, doesn't show the street, the drive-in, driveway. It doesn't show anything. It's got a big black box over it.
All the black box is, it's just telling you where you zoom to it. The address, you zoom to it, it's that red spot right there on York Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. I have Councilor Lay next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, sir, let me tell you that I never wanted to be and never will be on the election commission. Thank you all for taking it on. I'd run the big canvas before they could put me on that thing. Okay. It seems like we've got dueling maps here. And you all had this one, and that's what you went by.
That's all.
And I wonder, is anybody from Geodata here? Probably not, I guess.
David's not here.
Yeah, Ms. Barker Harold.
I called Geodata, trying to get somebody up here. I couldn't get anybody answer the phone. Called their conference to the office on.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And I wonder if somebody from Cherokee Nation could tell us which one it is and tell you, really, not us. I think you're probably right. I think you guys need to do this.
I'd like to drive down there and look at it.
Yeah, and I think y'all need to do this, and I think you need to verify that this gentleman.
Because I can't go just on what somebody says, this is his house. I don't know if that's his house.
Yes, sir.
When you get there, you won't see a line. There's not any line there.
I can tell, I know
You see the
that.
house.
Councilor Lay, still on the floor. Any further questions?
I think we got a dual map here, and I'd like to see some confirmation.
Very good. Councilor Count Watts had you next.
Thank you. It appears that they're the same map, but I think the difference is, and David Justice spoke to this before in our 911 addressing and the address update projects, is that the map that was given to the election commission is at the middle of the street.
Right.
So that's the address to the middle of the street, whereas the map, most likely the same map that Councilman Garvin's presented, shows the actual physical location of the house and probably where the gentleman lays his head at night and sleeps. Which seems to me in the Cherokee Nation. But I think that this very issue speaks to why the Administrative Procedures Act is so important, so that these individual issues stay out of the tribal council body and that the rights of the individual citizen are represented in a clear fashion at the Election Commission, so we are out of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Horton, it does appear your map puts a dot in the middle of the streets. I bet if I got my Google Maps out on my phone and asked for this guy's address, it'd probably give me a similar map, a dot on the street. Wouldn't you agree that Councilor Garvin's map more accurately depicts the actual kind of homestead and where the... Assuming that's the right house.
I can see that, it looks like an aerial photo there.
Right.
Instead of coming, I don't know if it come off the satellite, it don't have GEO data on it from Cherokee Nation address.
If geodata could produce a map which would depict the house just as Councilor Garvin's map shows, and it showed that his land was mostly in the Cherokee Nation. I mean, if you got different data from geodata, would it give you reason to maybe revisit this issue?
Oh, yeah, but, it makes me feel like we're a scapegoat because they're saying y'all done wrong. We done the best we could do with what we had.
And Mr. Horton, I got to say, from my perspective, I didn't interpret Councilor Garvin's resolution as being critical. I think he wanted to change. I kind of interpreted it as he wants to change how we kind of define residency. And if you're kind of straddling the line, you're in it. We don't have all the information you all had in front of you, and it sounds like you might possibly get some better information from geodata. You might not. This may be as good as it gets. And if it is, then maybe we're at a standstill. But I wonder, Councilor Garvin, since we don't have geodata here, should we wait, or do you feel comfortable with proceeding? So that question's to Councilor Garvin, and then I have got Chief Byrd and Madam Speaker.
Well, I think we got enough to make a decision. This is his map, and I guess he'd stand behind it, the chair. Yeah, we can.
That's from geodata, that map that you have.
David Justice.
Okay. Councilor Byrd?
If we didn't have enough information, I was going to move at the table, but if Mr. Garvin wants to move forward, we'll support his cause.
I don't see any either way, but if you think that's wise,
Madam Speaker?
Well, I'm kind of toying with tabling too, because I would like to get geodata over here, because if they provided both of these, then they need to come over here and tell us what's going on. We're guessing right now. 1 month is not gonna, 1 month won't put us into a crisis yet on this issue, because he can, if it's determined he's a voter next month, he'll be a voter in that district. But I certainly think that we need to give some credence to what the election board's saying.
Before you make your motion to table, would you yield to Councilman Garvin?
I certainly would.
I was going to make a motion that we table this till next month.
Very good. Motion's been made. Second. All right, all in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. It's tabled. Any announcements? Motion to adjourn. All right, Councilor Anglin. Do I have a second? Second by Councilor Keener. All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.